In the quiet valley of Silverwood, where ancient trees wore cloaks of moss and starlight often lingered even after the sun had risen, lived a girl named Lyra. She resided in a cottage woven from willow branches and moonlight, nestled beside a stream that sang lullabies to the smooth gray stones in its bed. Lyra wasn't like other children in Silverwood who delighted in boisterous games of hide-and-seek among the giant ferns or chasing iridescent dragonflies through sun-dappled glades. Lyra loved quiet. She loved the hush that fell over the forest at dusk, the rustle of leaves like 1,000 tiny sighs, the soft thrum of the earth beneath her bare feet. But most of all, Lyra loved the Whis. The Whis were not something you could see. Not exactly. They were not creatures with fur or feathers, nor plants with roots and leaves. The Whis were the gentle, ephemeral voices of the world itself. They were the soft chime of dew dropping from a spider's silk, the barely there hum of a blossom unfurling, the distant echo of a dream drifting from a slumbering animal. They were the melody woven into the very fabric of existence in Silverwood, a delicate symphony audible only to those who knew how to truly listen. Lyra had listened since she was a babe, cradled in her grandmother Elara's arms, who herself had been a renowned listener. Grandmother Elara had taught Lyra the difference between the wind's bluster and the wind's secret murmur, between a bird's song and the tiny hopeful pulse of its fledgling heart. "The world," Grandmother Elara would say, her voice as soft as a moth's wing, "is a vast silent choir, Lyra, and the Whis are its most precious notes." Lyra's cottage was a sanctuary of sound. The walls, imbued with the magic of the willow trees they came from, seemed to absorb harsh noises and amplify the gentle ones. The crackle of her hearth fire was a friendly purr, the bubbling of her stewpot a contented gurgle. Even her own breathing, slow, and even as she slept, felt like a soft rhythmic tide against the shore of her pillow. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of rose and lavender, Lyra sat by her open window, a cup of warm moon-mint tea steaming in her hands. The air was still and cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. Tonight, however, the Whis felt different. Usually they were a scattered, comforting presence, like countless fireflies blinking in a vast, dark field. But tonight, they seemed to gather, to coalesce, forming a delicate, continuous thread of sound. It was almost like a single, drawn-out note, shimmering just beyond the edge of hearing. It was too soft to be a bell, too ethereal to be a flute, yet it had the clarity of both. It hummed in her bones, vibrated in the air around her, and settled deep within her chest, a feeling more than a sound. Lyra closed her eyes, letting her other senses recede, allowing only her ears and her heart to perceive. The Whis were calling. Not with words, for the Whis had no words, but with an undeniable urgency that tugged at something deep within Lyra. It was a gentle, insistent plea, like a child's soft sob in the distance, or the fragile flutter of a trapped bird. Lyra had never felt the Whis like this before. They usually spoke of peace, of growth, of the quiet joy of being. Tonight, there was a tremor of something else. A delicate fear, perhaps, or a fading hope. Setting her tea aside, Lyra rose. Her bare feet made no sound on the cool, polished floorboards. She pulled on her thick moss-green cloak, the hood trimmed with soft rabbit's fur, and picked up her lantern. Not one with a candle, but a hollowed-out moon-petal gourd that glowed with captured starlight. "I hear you," she whispered to the silent air, though she knew the Whis heard her heart more than her voice. "I'm coming?" She slipped out of the cottage, leaving the willow door ajar, a beacon of warm golden light spilling onto the dew-kissed grass. The familiar path wound through the Silverwood, but tonight it felt different. The ancient trees, usually benevolent watchers, seemed to lean in, their branches rustling with a soft collective sigh. The glowing mushrooms that dotted the forest floor pulsed with a more intense light, as if trying to illuminate her way. The calling grew stronger, more focused, drawing her deeper into the wood than she usually ventured after dusk. It led her past the Whispering Falls, where water tumbled over mossy rocks, with a sound like 1,000 secrets being told at once. It guided her through the tangle of the thornwood, where thorny vines often snagged unwary travelers, yet tonight parted gently for her passage, their thorns retracting like sleepy claws. Finally, the path opened into a clearing Lyra had only heard tales of, the Heartwood Glade. It was a place of profound magic, where the very first tree of Silverwood was said to have taken root, its ancient spirit still living within the glade soil. The air here was thick, with an almost tangible magic, shimmering with motes of unseen light. The grass grew impossibly tall and soft, like a carpet of emerald velvet, and the trees that ringed the glade were unlike any others in Silverwood. Their bark was smooth as polished jade, and their leaves glowed with a faint inner light, casting shifting patterns of emerald and gold on the ground. In the center of the heartwood glade stood a single enormous tree, far grander than any Lyra had ever seen. Its trunk was wider than her cottage, its branches reached towards the heavens, laden with leaves that shimmered like 1,000 tiny constellations. This was the legendary heartwood tree, the ancient spirit of Silverwood, the mother of all trees. And it was here that the Whis were gathered. They manifested not as single, scattered notes, but as a swirling vortex of delicate luminous motes, like dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, but made of pure sound and light. They spiraled around the base of the heartwood tree, rising higher and higher, forming a shimmering column that pulsed with the gentle, insistent note Lyra had heard from her cottage. As Lyra stepped into the glade, the column of Whis seemed to acknowledge her presence. It paused its ascent, and a portion of the shimmering motes drifted towards her, circling her gently. They felt like warm air, like a breath against her cheek, but also carried a faint, sweet scent of damp moss and morning dew. The sound they made, close up, was even more profound, a complex harmony of countless tiny whispers, each one distinct, yet blending into a single, cohesive plea. Lyra reached out a hand, palm open, and one of the larger motes, shimmering with a particularly vibrant golden light, drifted onto her skin. It felt like nothing, yet she could feel its delicate vibration, a tiny pulse of pure energy. It seemed to expand, growing clearer, and for a fleeting moment, Lyra saw something. Not with her eyes, but with an inner sight, a burst of understanding directly into her mind. She saw the heartwood tree. Not as it stood now, magnificent and grand, but as it was in a distant memory or a future vision. Its leaves were dim, its bark dull, and the vibrant life that usually pulsed within its mighty trunk seemed to be fading, like an ember losing its heat. The motes of Whis around the tree were fewer, their light weaker, their song muted. It was a vision of decline, of a slow, quiet fading. Then the golden mote pulsed again, and the vision shifted. Lyra saw a gentle, shimmering mist, not unlike the Whis themselves, but thicker, darker, creeping slowly from the forgotten corners of Silverwood. It seemed to absorb the light, to silence the faint sounds of the forest, leaving behind a cold, desolate quiet. It was a quiet that was not peaceful, but empty. A quiet that devoured. The Whis, she realized, were not just calling her for themselves, but for the heartwood tree, for Silverwood itself. They were the gentle guardians of the world's quiet magic, and they sensed a threat, a creeping silence that sought to extinguish the delicate symphony they composed. The golden mote lifted from her hand, rejoining the swirling column of light and sound. The column began to descend slowly, gracefully, until it settled at the very base of the heartwood tree, forming a glowing ring. Then, from the center of that ring, a small, crystalline object began to rise. It was a delicate, translucent sphere, no larger than a robin's egg, crafted from what looked like frozen starlight. Within its depths, a faint, internal glow pulsed rhythmically, like a tiny heart. As it rose, the Whis around it seemed to pour their essence into it, their light intensifying, their song becoming a unified, resonant hum. The sphere floated directly towards Lyra, stopping just before her outstretched hands. It radiated a comforting warmth, and the air around it shimmered with the residual magic of the Whis. Lyra carefully cupped her hands and the sphere settled into them, surprisingly light, yet solid. As her fingers closed around it, the sphere pulsed brightly once, then faded to a soft, constant glow. And in that moment, Lyra felt a connection, a resonance with the sphere and with the Whis themselves. She understood, without words, that this was a vessel, a keeper of the Whis essence, a key to understanding the encroaching silence and perhaps to restoring the heartwood tree's fading light. It was then that she noticed a faint inscription on the sphere's surface, visible only now that it rested in her hands. Tiny, swirling lines like miniature currents of a magical river. They seemed to form a single ancient symbol, one Lyra had never seen before, yet felt instinctively familiar. It was the symbol of the elder listeners, those who had safeguarded the Whis for generations. Her grandmother Ilara had spoken of them, of their deep connection to the land and its subtle magic. The Whis, swirling around the heartwood tree, now pulsed with a softer, more hopeful rhythm. Their urgent plea had transformed into a gentle, encouraging hum. They had placed their trust in her, a young girl from Silverwood, to carry their essence, to seek out the source of the encroaching silence, and to protect the delicate harmony of their world. Lyra looked down at the glowing sphere in her hands, then up at the ancient, silent heartwood tree, and then out towards the dark, whispering forest. The warmth of the sphere spread through her, filling her with a quiet resolve. The path ahead was unknown, the task immense, but the Whis had chosen her. And Lyra, the girl who loved quiet, knew she could not refuse the silent song of the world. She would listen, and she would act. The journey to understand the fading light of the heartwood, and the creeping silence that threatened Silverwood, had just begun. The warmth of the sphere spread through her, filling her with a quiet resolve. The path ahead was unknown, the task immense, but the Whis had chosen her. And Lyra, the girl who loved quiet, knew she could not refuse the silent song of the world. She would listen, and she would act. The journey to understand the fading light of the heartwood, and the creeping silence that threatened Silverwood, had just begun. Lyra took a deep, steadying breath, the air around the heartwood tree still thick with ancient magic, though tinged with a delicate sorrow. The sphere in her palm pulsed faintly, a living ember of golden light. It didn't burn, but rather hummed with a comforting warmth, guiding her gaze past the immense, gnarled roots, past the moss-covered stones that had witnessed centuries, and towards the deeper parts of Silverwood. The forest was a tapestry of greens and browns, usually vibrant, alive with the rustle of unseen creatures and the distant calls of birds. But even here, at the very heart of it all, Lyra noticed the subtle shift. The air itself felt heavier, as if sound struggled to carry. The leaves of the elder oaks, usually a riot of chatter in the breeze, now stirred with a muted sigh. The faint, luminous moss that typically traced patterns on the forest floor glowed with a dimmer, hesitant light. Lyra stepped forward, her soft leather boots making hardly a sound on the carpet of fallen leaves. She didn't have a map, nor a spoken instruction, but the sphere seemed to tug gently in her hand, a silent compass pointing her deeper into the whispering woods. She listened with all her senses, her quiet nature a gift now, allowing her to perceive the most subtle changes. As she walked, the signs of the creeping silence became more apparent. The streams, which should have babbled and gurgled with joyous abandon, now flowed with a languid, almost melancholic murmur. Wildflowers, usually bursting with color, held their petals a little droopier, their hues a shade less vivid. Even the forest creatures seemed affected. A family of swift paws, usually a blur of playful motion, scampered across her path with an unusual caution, their chirps soft and brief, lacking their usual zest. Lyra saw a young fawn, its coat dappled like sunlight through leaves, standing utterly still, gazing not at her, but at nothing, its big eyes holding a strange, unblinking emptiness. The silence wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a dulling of life itself, a dampening of the vibrant magic that knitted Silverwood together. It was as if the forest was slowly holding its breath, waiting for a song it couldn't quite remember. Lyra clutched the sphere tighter, its warmth a small defiance against the encroaching chill of this quiet sorrow. She pressed on, her eyes scanning the ancient trees. She knew this forest, its secret paths and hidden glades, from years of quiet wandering. She sought not a destination, but a deeper understanding. What was this silence? Where did it come from? As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of soft lavender and rose, Lyra found herself in a grove of ancient willow whispers. These trees were renowned for their delicate, shimmering leaves that, even in the slightest breeze, would produce a sound like 1,000 tiny bells chiming. Today, they rustled like dry paper, a faint, brittle whisper instead of their usual silvery song. Beneath the largest willow whisper, its branches draped low like a weeping giant, Lyra saw a small huddled form. It was Ilara, a squirrel spirit of remarkable age. Her fur, usually a vibrant russet, was now streaked with gray, and the dew diamonds that often clung to her whiskers, sparkling like tiny stars, were dull and scarce. Her eyes, usually bright with curiosity and ancient mischief, held a profound weariness. Lyra approached slowly, not wishing to startle the old spirit. "Ilara?" she whispered, her voice soft in the quiet grove. Lyra's head lifted slowly, as if the effort was immense. Her eyes, the color of polished acorns, focused on Lyra, then on the golden sphere in her hand. A faint spark of recognition flickered within them. "The Whis have chosen," she rasped, her voice like leaves crunching underfoot, "and the quiet girl has come." Lyra nodded, holding out the sphere a little. The heartwood's light is fading. The forest grows silent. Lyra let out a sigh that sounded like the last breath of autumn. "It is the dullness, child. A deep, pervasive muting that steals the very song from the world. It began as a whisper, a forgotten note, then a muted chord, and now, a symphony of silence." She gestured with a gnarled paw towards the willow whispers. "Even these, the most vocal of our kin, struggle to remember their own melody. Do you know what causes it?" Lyra asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Lyra slowly shook her head. "No living creature remembers a dullness this profound. It feels like the unraveling of the forest's very heartstrings. But I remember the old tales, the songs we used to sing when the world was bright and loud. There is a place, far to the north, beyond the sunken marshes and through the whispering peaks, where the forest's song was once loudest. We called it the Echoing Falls. Its roar was a joyful thunder, its mist a spray of quidlight, and its very prison." Lyra looked in the direction Lyra indicated, a vast unknown expanse of forest stretching before her. "And now?" "Now," Lyra continued, her voice growing fainter. "It is said the Echoing Falls barely whispers. The muting began there, a crack in the forest's grand harmony. If the heart song of Silverwood is to be mended, its first true note must be found where the music once soared highest. You must go to the Echoing Falls, Lyra. Seek out what remains of its voice. Perhaps, where the deepest silence lies, you will find the Lyra's eyes, heavy with age and sorrow, met Lyra's. "Be wary, little one. The dullness is not just an absence. It is a weight, a heavy cloak that can stifle even the brightest spirit. Let the Whis gift be your guide, and your own quiet heart your strength. For only those who truly listen can hear the silent pleas of a world in pain." With that, Lyra closed her eyes, her breathing becoming shallow and slow, a testament to the heavy burden of the dullness. Lyra gently placed a hand on the ancient squirrel's head, sending a pulse of warmth from the sphere into her. Lyra stirred slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer returning to the sparse dew diamonds on her whiskers, and a soft, contented sigh escaped her lips. Lyra stayed for a moment longer, watching the old spirit, feeling the weight of the task ahead. The Echoing Falls. It sounded like a place of immense power, now brought low. It was a long journey, through parts of Silverwood she had never ventured. But Lyra knew she had to go. She rose, the sphere glowing a little brighter, as if in agreement. She offered a silent farewell to Lyra and turned north, towards the setting sun and the path to the Echoing Falls. The forest grew darker as twilight deepened, but the golden glow of the sphere cast a small, steady circle of light around her, illuminating the immediate path. The journey through the sunken marshes was unlike any path Lyra had ever taken. The ground became soft and spongy beneath her feet, dotted with strange, bulbous plants that glowed with a sickly green light, far from the vibrant luminescence she was accustomed to. The air hung thick and heavy, laden with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The silence here was even more profound, broken only by the slosh of her boots and the distant, mournful croak of unseen marsh creatures. The sphere in her hand hummed with a nervous energy, its light seeming to push back against the oppressive gloom. Lyra had to tread carefully, navigating winding paths of slightly firmer ground, stepping over gnarled roots that snaked across her way like sleeping serpents. She saw plants she had never encountered before, their leaves broad and dark, absorbing the faint light rather than reflecting it. The few birds that lived here were silent, their plumage dull, their eyes wary and still. She understood what Lyra had meant about the dullness being a weight. It pressed down on her, trying to dampen her spirit, to quiet her own thoughts. But the warmth of the sphere, and the quiet resolve within her, held firm. After what felt like an eternity, the marsh gradually gave way to rising ground. The air grew fresher, though still tinged with the pervasive quiet. Lyra found herself at the base of the Whispering Peaks. These were not towering mountains, but rather a series of ancient rolling hills, cloaked in an even denser forest of ancient evergreens. The trees here were different too, their needles long and dark, their branches often draped with hanging moss that swayed like old beards. The name Whispering Peaks had always fascinated Lyra. Tales said that the wind here carried the echoes of ancient songs, the secrets of the forest whispered from one peak to another. But now as she ascended the winding trails there was only the mournful sigh of the wind through the needles, a hollow sound devoid of any melody or meaning. The stones underfoot, usually speckled with bright lichen, were now gray and bare. It was in a small hidden hollow between two of the peaks that Lyra first encountered the echo weavers. She heard them before she saw them, a faint, almost imperceptible hum that made the tiny hairs on her arms stand up. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate not through the air, but through the very earth itself. Peering into the hollow, Lyra saw a cluster of creatures unlike any she had ever imagined. They resembled large, luminous beetles, their carapaces shimmering with iridescent blues and greens. But instead of wings, they had delicate, gossamer-thin membranes that pulsed with a soft internal light. They were arranged in a circle, their antennae touching, and from their forms emanated the strange, rhythmic hum. As Lyra watched, she realized they were trying to weave a sound. One of the echo weavers would produce a low thrum, then another would try to mimic it, but the sound would falter, breaking into distorted fragments. They were struggling, their combined efforts barely creating a weak, broken melody. Their frustration was palpable, a silent wave of distress. Carefully, Lyra stepped into the hollow. The echo weavers immediately ceased their efforts, their luminous forms dimming, their antennae twitching nervously in her direction. They were shy, ethereal creatures, rarely seen by mortals. "I mean you no harm," Lyra whispered, holding out the sphere. Its golden light seemed to comfort them, for their carapaces began to shimmer a little brighter. "I am Lyra. I seek the echoing falls, and a way to mend the heart song of Silverwood." One of the echo weavers, slightly larger than the others, detached itself from the circle and hovered cautiously closer to Lyra. Its multifaceted eyes regarded her with a deep, ancient wisdom. It did not speak with words, but Lyra, with her gift for listening, felt its thoughts impress upon her mind like soft ripples in a pond. "The song, it breaks, the threads unravel. We try to mend, but the notes vanish." "The dullness," Lyra murmured, understanding. "It steals your song. The heart song, a web of sound, from root to sky, from deepest spring to highest peak, the falls, its voice. A central knot," the echo weaver pulsed with a faint sorrow. "Nuff. A whisper, a void. The falls cannot sing, and so the threads fray. Elara, the squirrel spirit, told me I must seek its voice," Lyra explained. "Do you know what keeps the echoing falls from singing its true song?" The echo weaver vibrated, and Lyra felt a clearer image in her mind. The silent bell. Once, its music rang, through mist and stone, amplifying the fall's true voice. A symphony of nature. A beacon of harmony, a pang of deep sadness radiated from the creature. Long ago, a shadow fell, not this dullness, but a sharp strike. The bell shattered, its song muted, its fragments lost in the deep waters. Lyra's eyes widened. "Huh? The silent bell? So the falls cannot sing its true song because this bell is broken?" "Yes, the full spirit. Resonance, it tries. But its voice is weak. Without its true amplifier, the heart song cannot mend. The dullness deepens." The echo weaver pulsed, then pointed one delicate antenna towards a narrow, treacherous path that wound even higher into the peaks. "Zeke the stonecrafter, in the uppermost caves, he knows of ancient stones, of forging and mending. Perhaps he holds a memory of the silent bell's making, or a way to restore its shattered song." "The stonecrafter?" Lyra repeated, the name resonating with the ancient feel of the mountains. "Thank you, Echo Weaver." The creatures hummed a soft, mournful farewell as Lyra turned towards the path they indicated. The sky was now a deep indigo, dotted with the first hesitant stars. The air grew colder, and Lyra pulled her cloak tighter, but the sphere in her hand continued its steady, comforting glow. The journey was unfolding, clue by clue, guiding her deeper into Silverwood's silent heart. The path to the Stonecrafter's caves was steep and winding, a narrow trail clinging to the sheer rock faces of the whispering peaks. The air grew thin, crisp with the chill of high altitudes, and the forest canopy gradually thinned, replaced by hardy, wind-battered pines and ancient moss-draped boulders. Lyra pressed on, her legs growing weary, but her resolve strengthened by the Echo Weaver's words. The silent bell, a tangible goal, a specific thing to seek. After hours of arduous climbing, guided by the sphere's unwavering glow, Lyra saw it. A faint glimmer of light emanating from a deep crevice high up on the mountainside. As she drew closer, the scent of damp stone and something else, something metallic and earthy, reached her nostrils. The entrance to the cave was unassuming, a jagged maw in the rock face, framed by dark, rough-hewn stones. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The air within was cool and still, echoing with the drip of unseen water. The faint light she had seen came from further within, a soft, warm glow that pulsed rhythmically, like a slow, steady heartbeat. Following the light, Lyra ventured deeper into the mountain's embrace. The cave opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow, but its floor illuminated by a magnificent sight. In the center of the cavern stood an enormous naturally formed anvil of obsidian, its surface polished smooth by countless years of use. Around it, tools of shimmering crystal and hardened wood lay scattered. And hovering above the anvil, radiating the pulsing light, was the Stonecrafter. He was a being of pure, crystallized earth, shimmering with inner light. His form was roughly humanoid, but his skin was like polished granite, his hair a cascade of sparkling quartz, and his eyes like deep, luminous emeralds. He was immensely old, his features etched with the patience of mountains, but also a profound sadness that seemed to mirror the forest's dullness. He was not active, but rather suspended in the air, slowly rotating as if lost in thought, a single, flawless crystal mallet clutched in one hand. Lyra approached reverently, feeling the ancient power emanating from him. "Stonecrafter," she whispered, her voice feeling impossibly small in the vast chamber. The Stonecrafter slowly descended, his bare feet touching the cavern floor with a faint, resonant thrum. His emerald eyes opened fully, fixing on Lyra, then on the golden sphere in her hand. A faint smile like sunlight on stone touched his lips. "The Whis have sent a listener," he rumbled, his voice like boulders shifting deep and resonant, yet also tinged with a weariness that spoke of eons. "And you carry a shard of the Heartwood's light. It has been a long time since such a light entered my solitary domain." "I seek the silent bell," Lyra said, her voice gaining strength. "The Echo Weavers told me it shattered long ago, and without it, the echoing falls cannot sing its true song, and the dullness spreads." A sigh, like wind through stone canyons, escaped the Stonecrafter. "Ah, the silent bell. A masterpiece of my craft, forged from the purest heartstone, imbued with the very essence of Silverwood's harmony. Its song was a shield against discord, a beacon for all life. Indeed, its shattering was the first wound, the initial crack in the forest's harmony, long before this creeping dullness began." "Do you know how it was shattered?" Lyra asked, her heart aching for the ancient loss. The Stonecrafter's eyes grew distant, gazing into a memory of sorrow. "It was not the dullness that broke it, but a sudden violent discord. A powerful surge of disharmony, born of envy and greed, struck the bell directly. It was not a physical blow, but a magical one, a wave of pure dissonance that fractured its essence. The shards scattered, lost in the deepest pools beneath the echoing falls, where the currents are strongest and the light never reaches." Lyra felt a flicker of despair. "Then it cannot be mended." The Stonecrafter looked at her, his emerald eyes holding a spark of ancient hope. "No true magic is ever entirely lost, young listener. The silent bell can be mended, but to do so, you must find its two most significant fragments, the melody shard and the resonance core. The melody shard holds the bell's inherent tune, the song it was born to sing. The resonance core holds the power to amplify that tune, to make it sing loud enough to counter the dullness." "And where are they?" Lyra asked, a renewed sense of purpose stirring within her. "The melody shard," the Stonecrafter explained, "was carried by the currents to the deepest, most hidden grotto beneath the falls, protected by the very spirit of the water itself. It will be near where the fall's spirit resonance makes its home." He paused, his gaze turning inward. The resonance core, however, was hurled further by the force of the discord, beyond the falls, into a place known as the Whispering Labyrinth, a maze of ancient, shifting stone carved by the very breath of the peaks. It is guarded by illusions and deceptive echoes, and only a heart true to Silverwood's silence can hope to navigate it. Lyra considered his words. 2 fragments, in 2 distinct and challenging locations. If I find them, can you mend the bell? With the melody shard and the resonance core, and with the heartwood's light you carry? Yes, I can reforge the silent bell, the stonecrafter affirmed, his voice growing stronger. But the mending will require more than my craft alone. It will require the true song of Silverwood itself, channeled through your quiet heart, to reawaken its full power. You must bring the fragments back to me here, in this chamber, where the mountain's own heart beats true. Lyra nodded, a deep breath filling her lungs. The task was clearer now, though no less daunting. First, the echoing falls, to find resonance and the melody shard. Then, the Whispering Labyrinth, for the resonance core. Thank you, Stonecrafter, she said, bowing her head in respect. The Stonecrafter inclined his head, his quartz hair shimmering. May the Whis guide your quiet steps, Lyra. The fate of Silverwood rests on your listening heart. Lyra emerged from the Stonecrafter's cave, the faint light of dawn painting the eastern sky in soft grays and purples. The cold mountain air invigorated her, chasing away the lingering weariness. The journey so far had revealed more than she could have imagined. The dullness was not just a natural decline, but a consequence of a deeper, older wound, the shattering of the silent bell. And now, she had a path, a purpose. She began her descent from the whispering peaks, the sphere in her hand a steady beacon, its warmth a promise against the creeping chill of the dullness. Her destination, the echoing falls. She would seek out resonance, the spirit of the falls, and find the melody shard hidden deep within its waters. The path ahead was still fraught with the pervasive silence, but Lyra now carried not just the warmth of the Whis, but the knowledge of what needed to be done. The quiet girl, chosen by the silent song of the world, was ready to mend its broken harmony. The path ahead, though still shrouded in the dullness's oppressive hush, felt different now. Lyra clutched the Whis, its steady light a warm pulse against her palm, a tiny sun in the muted world. No longer adrift in uncertainty, she had a purpose, a destination, and a glimmer of hope that felt brighter than any star. Her journey began with the soft crunch of dried leaves beneath her worn boots. The forest, once a symphony of rustling branches and chattering creatures, was eerily silent. Trees stood like hushed sentinels, their leaves a uniform, dull green, devoid of the vibrant hues and subtle shifts that marked the seasons. The air was still and cool, carrying no scent of damp earth or blooming flora, only a faint metallic tang that bespoke of stagnation. Yet, Lyra found herself noticing the delicate tracery of frost on a spiderweb, though the spider itself was long gone, all the way a single stubborn patch of moss clung to a grey stone, a faint, almost imperceptible vibrance in its emerald hue. These small details, overlooked by eyes accustomed to a louder, more colorful world, were gifts to her quiet perception. The Whis, cradled in her hand, did more than just illuminate the immediate path. It hummed softly, a silent song that resonated deep within Lyra, a reassuring warmth that pushed back against the creeping chill of the dullness. When a particularly dense patch of thorny brambles blocked her way, the Whis pulsed, and a faint shimmering path opened just wide enough for her to slip through, the thorns retracting as if bowing to its gentle command. When a sudden, disorienting mist rolled in, threatening to swallow her whole, the Whis brightened, its light cutting through the swirling gray, always pointing true north, towards the faint, distant sound that she knew, instinctively, was the echoing falls. Days bled into a soft gray succession. Lyra learned to listen to the silence, to read the world in its muted tones. She found sustenance in the few wild berries that still offered a faint sweetness, guided to them by the Whis's gentle warmth, which intensified slightly when she neared something life-giving. She slept curled beneath ancient silent trees. The Whis nestled close, its glow a comforting presence against the vast, empty night. Her dreams were not of the past, but of shimmering water and unheard melodies, fragmented harmonies that danced at the edges of her slumber, preparing her. As she drew closer to the echoing falls, the landscape began to shift. The trees thinned, giving way to rolling, undulating hills, their slopes covered in sparse, pale grasses. The air grew colder, and a faint, rhythmic hum began to vibrate in the ground beneath her feet, so subtle that only her quiet, attuned senses could detect it. It wasn't a sound, not really, but a resonance. A deep, underlying pulse that hinted at something vast and powerful, struggling to express itself. Then she saw it. In the distance, rising from the mist-shrouded valley, was a colossal, ancient mountain range, its peaks jagged and gray, like teeth gnawing at the sky. And from a vast cleft in its center, the echoing falls cascaded. But it was not a thunderous roar, nor a shimmering curtain of water. Instead, it was a silent, frozen spectacle. A colossal sheet of ice, impossibly thick and ancient, clung to the mountainside, trapping the water mid-plunge. Below, a vast, circular pool lay still and dark, its surface like polished obsidian, reflecting the dull sky without a ripple. The sheer scale was breathtaking, but the silence, the utter stillness of such a powerful force, was profoundly unsettling. The rhythmic eye-thrum grew stronger now, a deep, mournful vibration that seemed to emanate from the very heart of the frozen falls. Lyra approached cautiously, her footsteps echoing unnaturally in the vast emptiness. The air here was heavy, thick with a cold that seeped into her bones, far beyond the physical chill. It was the chill of absence, of lost potential, of a grand song stifled. As she neared the immense ice wall, Lyra saw the faint, shimmering outlines of what looked like ancient, moss-covered stone steps leading up the side of the cliff, winding towards a small dark opening at the base of the frozen waterfall. The Whis in her hand pulsed with renewed vigor, its warmth spreading through her, chasing away the pervasive cold. This was the way. The steps were treacherous, slick with a thin layer of hoarfrost. Lyra climbed slowly, carefully, her quiet concentration absolute. The eye-thrumming grew louder, reverberating through her chest, a low, resonant note that seemed to be calling to her. Finally she reached the opening, a natural cavern, dark and yawning. Stepping inside, Lyra was enveloped in an even deeper silence, broken only by the incessant, low, key-thrum. The cavern walls were smooth, glistening with trapped moisture, and carved with ancient, swirling patterns that seemed to depict flowing water and dancing light, now muted and almost invisible under the dullness. The Whis cast a gentle glow, illuminating a path deeper into the earth. The cavern wound downwards, twisting and turning, until Lyra emerged into a vast subterranean chamber. Here, the eye-thrumming was deafening. A physical pressure against her eardrums, a silent roar that threatened to overwhelm her. In the center of the chamber, a colossal, crystalline structure rose from a deep, shimmering pool. It was a pillar of pure, living ice, spiraling upwards towards an unseen ceiling, catching the Whis' light and refracting it into 1,000 muted rainbows. And within this pillar, vaguely visible, was a shape, a form of pure energy, indistinct yet powerful, shimmering faintly with a desperate, trapped light. This, Lyra knew, was resonance. She approached the edge of the pool, the water unnaturally still, yet radiating the same deep, frommung. The air here was strangely warm, a pocket of resistance against the dullness, sustained by the sheer will of the trapped spirit. Lyra extended her hand, the Whis glowing brightly, its warmth reaching out like a tender touch. As her hand hovered over the water, the crystalline pillar pulsed. The form within shifted, coalescing, and then a faint, almost imperceptible ripple spread across the surface of the pool. From the shimmering core of the ice pillar, a silent voice reached into Lyra's mind, a cascade of feelings rather than words. "Well, one, you have come. I felt the stirring of your light," a whisper in the great silence. "Unwind." Lyra, ever quiet, simply nodded, her gaze fixed on the trapped spirit. She felt a profound sadness emanating from resonance, a deep sorrow for the world's muted state, but also a fragile spark of hope, kindled by Lyra's arrival. "The dullness. It has trapped me," Resonance's thoughts flowed into Lyra's mind. "It froze my waters, silenced my song. I am the voice of the falls, the echo of the world's living harmony, but my voice is bound, my echoes lost. Here, in a scene, the nomad he sit." Lyra looked at the vast, silent form. The melody shard, she thought, her quiet intention a clear query. "I must find it." Resonance's presence seemed to shiver, a faint, internal tremor within the crystalline prison. Yes. The shard. A piece of my true song, splintered and cast into the depths when the dullness first descended. It holds the key to releasing my voice, to thawing the ice that binds me. But it is guarded, not by malice, but by the very despair of the world. The dullness feeds on silence, on sorrow. It has woven illusions, echoes of lost memories, to protect the shard. It's shindri. This shard lies at the deepest point of this pool, resonance conveyed. But the water, it mirrors the world's deepest fears and forgotten joys. To reach the shard you must not fight these echoes but understand them. Embrace the quiet wisdom of what was, and what can be. Gleshmol. Lyra looked at the still, dark water. It seemed impossibly deep, a mirror to the world's lost soul. She held the Whis higher. How do I understand them? She thought, her gaze unwavering. Listen with your heart, child of quietude, resonance replied, its essence shimmering. Dear dullness thrives on distraction, on the clamor of fear. Your silence is your shield. Your quietness allows you to hear the unseen, to feel the unspoken. The Whis, it is a beacon. It will guide your inner light. Uninsay. Taking a deep breath, Lyra prepared herself. She knew this would be no ordinary dive. She sat at the edge of the pool, gently removed her boots, and then, with a quiet determination that belied her small stature, she slipped into the water. The cold was immediate, a shocking embrace that stole her breath. But the Whis, still clutched in her hand, flared, its warmth enveloping her, creating a small, personal bubble of comfort. As she descended, the water grew darker, thicker, feeling less like liquid and more like memory itself. The thrumming of resonance faded slightly, replaced by a strange murmuring silence that seemed to press in from all sides. She swam downwards, the Whis a steady guide. Soon, the first echo began to manifest. Around her, spectral forms began to appear, shimmering like heat haze in the water. They were not solid, yet they felt profoundly real. A tiny luminous fish, its scales sparkling with impossible colors, darted past her, then vanished. A silent flock of iridescent birds flew through the water, their wings beating without a sound. A magnificent ancient tree, its branches laden with glowing fruit, materialized, only to wither and fade into motes of light. These were memories of life, of beauty, of the vibrant world before the dullness. They were beautiful, but ephemeral, designed to distract, to make her mourn what was lost. Lyra watched them, her heart aching with a quiet sorrow, but she did not chase them. She simply observed, acknowledging their beauty, and continued her descent. The Whis pulsed gently, reminding her of her purpose. Deeper still, the echoes became more challenging. Whispers, not of sound but of feeling, drifted into her mind. Ah, you are too small. Too quiet. What can one girl do? The world is broken beyond repair. Give up. Rest. Diwa. These were the insidious doubts, the despair that the dullness fed upon trying to seep into her resolve. Lyra felt the pull, the temptation to simply float, to let the silence consume her. But then the Whis would pulse, its warmth a reminder of the silent song, the promise she carried. She focused on that warmth, on the steady beat of her own heart, and pushed through the despair, letting the whispers pass her by like currents in the water. She knew these were not her own thoughts but the world's exhaustion projected onto her. The water grew colder, the light from the surface a distant memory. The Whis was her only beacon now, its glow illuminating strange sculpted rocks that looked like forgotten faces, etched with expressions of ancient sorrow. Here, the echoes were of loss and grief. She saw flickering images of people, their faces blurred, their hands reaching out for something forever gone. A silent cry seemed to echo around her, a profound, universal lament. Lyra felt tears well in her eyes, tears not for herself, but for the world, for all the joy and sound and vibrancy that had been taken. She allowed herself to feel that sorrow, to acknowledge the deep wound within the world. But she did not drown in it. Instead, she let the sorrow flow through her, like the water itself, a part of the journey. In feeling it fully, she disarmed its power over her. The Whis pulsed, a gentle comfort, acknowledging her empathy, strengthening her resolve. And then, she saw it. At the very bottom of the vast pool, nestled amongst ancient, smooth stones, lay a faint, shimmering light. It wasn't the harsh, bright glow of the Whis, but a softer, inner radiance, like a captured star. As Lyra drew closer, the surrounding water seemed to thin, the echoes receding, as if they could not bear the purity of its presence. There, resting on a bed of luminous, silvery moss, was the melody shard. It was not large, no bigger than her palm, but it hummed with an almost unbearable beauty. It was a shard of crystal, clear as spring water, yet it contained within it a kaleidoscope of ever-shifting colors, a vibrant, liquid rainbow that danced and swirled, each hue a silent note in a grand, unseen symphony. It pulsed gently, like a tiny, beating heart, radiating a warmth that was distinct from the Whis, a warmth that felt like pure, concentrated joy. Lyra reached out, her fingers trembling slightly. As her hand closed around the shard, a profound sense of peace washed over her. The eye thrumming from resonance, which had been muted, suddenly intensified, resounding within the water, reverberating through her very being. The melody shard pulsed in her hand, sending ripples of vibrant light through the dark water, chasing away the last vestiges of the dullness's illusion. Clutching the shard, Lyra began her ascent. The water seemed less heavy now, almost eager to carry her upwards. As she rose, the light from the Whis mingled with the vibrant glow of the shard, creating a pathway of pure, singing color. The echoes, though still present, seemed to bow before the shard's light, their sorrow lessened, their despair muted. They were no longer obstacles, but silent witnesses to a returning hope. She broke the surface of the pool, gasping slightly, not from exertion but from the sheer wonder of the moment. The crystalline pillar of resonance pulsed wildly now, its trapped form shimmering with renewed vigor. The guy thrumming the chamber had transformed. It was no longer a mournful vibration, but a deep, resonant hum, a promise of a song about to be sung. Lyra swam to the edge, pulling herself out of the water. The melody shard glowed in her hand, its light casting dancing colors across the cavern walls, illuminating the ancient carvings with a vibrancy they hadn't known in ages. She walked towards the pillar of ice, holding the shard aloft. As she drew near, the ice pillar began to shimmer intensely. Cracks, thin as spiderwebs, began to spread across its surface, glowing with the same multicolored light as the shard. The ythrumming reached a crescendo, a silent roar of awakening. Then, with a soundless, majestic groan, the colossal pillar of ice began to melt. Not slowly, but rapidly, impossibly fast. Sheets of water poured down, not cold and dark, but shimmering with the same vibrant colors as the shard. The water flowed into the pool, which instantly began to churn and swirl, no longer still and dark, but alive, effervescent. From the heart of the melting ice, resonance emerged. Not as a solid form, but as a being of pure, shimmering water and light. She was a cascade of liquid colors, a graceful form made of flowing, luminous energy, her eyes like deep ancient pools reflecting the shard's light. Her presence filled the cavern with a silent, yet overwhelming melody, a harmony of rushing water, ancient stone, and burgeoning life. "You have done it, little one." Resonance's thoughts cascaded into Lyra's mind, clear and strong, a river of pure wisdom. "You have reclaimed a piece of my song. You have freed my voice." Inteen how. The waters in the chamber began to rise, swirling around Lyra's feet, but they were warm, gentle, and filled with a profound joy. The cavern itself seemed to expand, breathing with the released energy. "The falls," Lyra thought, looking at Resonance. "Me song begins to return," Resonance confirmed. "The ice on the surface, it will begin to thaw. The echoing falls will flow again, a powerful symphony in the world's muted ear." I am the Lyra looked at the melody shard in her hand, its colors still dancing. She felt a connection to it, a deep resonance that hummed within her own quiet soul. "This shard," Resonance's thoughts continued, "it is a heart note of the world's true harmony. But there are others, scattered across the lands, each one a vital part of the great song. One shard alone cannot mend the entire world, though it will bring much-needed warmth and sound back to this place. And she me." Lyra looked up, her quiet eyes meeting the shimmering essence of resonance. She understood. Her journey was not over. The melody shard she held was a victory, a powerful first step, but it was just one note in a vast silent symphony waiting to be reawakened. Take the shard, Lyra, resonance instructed, her voice a gentle flowing current in Lyra's mind. Let its light guide you. For now, the echoing falls will begin to sing again, a beacon of returning hope. But the world still waits for its full song. You must carry this light and seek out the other fragments. Your path is long, child of quietude, but the world's silent heart beats with you now. One day. As Resonance spoke, the water in the chamber began to recede, flowing outwards through the cavern, carrying with it the vibrant light of the shard. Lyra felt a gentle current pull her towards the winding passage she had entered through. The melody shard pulsed in her hand, warm and vibrant, a promise and a guide. She had found the first note. The world was beginning to listen. And Lyra, the quiet girl, was ready to find the next. As Resonance spoke, the water in the chamber began to recede, flowing outwards through the cavern, carrying with it the vibrant light of the shard. Lyra felt a gentle current pull her towards the winding passage she had entered through. The melody shard pulsed in her hand, warm and vibrant, a promise and a guide. She had found the first note. The world was beginning to listen. And Lyra, the quiet girl, was ready to find the next. The passage opened into a vast, starlit night. Above her, constellations glittered like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and distant pine. The melody shard, nestled in her palm, hummed softly, a tiny compass in the grand silence. It pulsed with a gentle warmth, pulling her not towards the familiar glow of the moon, but towards a darker, deeper part of the landscape, a sprawling ancient forest that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. With each step into the forest, the world shifted. The ground beneath her feet became softer, carpeted with moss and fallen leaves. The trees grew taller, their branches intertwining to form a leafy canopy that filtered the starlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The air grew thick with the scent of dew and damp soil, and the quiet sounds of the night intensified. Lyra heard the rustle of unseen creatures, the distant hoot of an owl, the gentle whisper of wind through the leaves. It was a symphony of soft sounds, yet something felt amiss. The shard in her hand glowed a little brighter, its pulse quickening. It led her deeper, past trees with bark like ancient faces and roots that snaked across the path like sleeping serpents. Suddenly, a soft, almost imperceptible sound reached her ears, a tiny, sorrowful hum, like a forgotten lullaby. She followed the sound, stepping carefully through a clearing where moonlight broke through, illuminating a cluster of creatures. They were small, no bigger than her hand, with bodies covered in soft, downy fur that shimmered with faint phosphorescence. They had large, expressive eyes and delicate, translucent wings that fluttered almost silently. These were mutterwings, the forest's gentle song-weavers, known for their collective hums that resonated through the trees, guiding lost wanderers and soothing troubled spirits. But tonight, their hums were disjointed, each creature emitting its own faint, lonely note. They huddled together, their wings drooping, their glowing fur dim. A soft, shimmering mist, almost invisible in the moonlight, seemed to cling to them, dulling their light and muting their song. Lyra approached slowly, not wanting to startle them. The melody shard vibrated with an urgent warmth. She understood. The mutterwings were struggling to find their harmony. The mist, she realized, was a manifestation of growing disconnection, a subtle discord spreading through the forest, making it difficult for the mutterwings to hear one another. She knelt, extending her hand, the melody shard glowing softly. The mutterwings, usually shy, regarded her with wide, sorrowful eyes. One particularly small mutterwing, its glow almost extinguished, chirped faintly, a sound of profound sadness. Lyra closed her eyes, holding the shard. She focused not on why making a sound, but on listening with her whole being. She listened to the individual, fragile hums of each mutterwing, to the subtle vibrations of their tiny bodies, to the faint, almost forgotten echoes of their once harmonious song. The shard pulsed in rhythm with her focused quietude, amplifying her inner listening. Then gently, she began to hum. Not a loud hum, but a soft, steady tone, drawn from the quietude she had found within herself, guided by the shard. It was a note of pure, gentle connection, a bridge between the disparate hums. As she hummed, the shard pulsed with a soft green light, weaving through the shimmering mist. Slowly, tentatively, the nearest mutterwing lifted its head. Its faint glow brightened a fraction. Then, another, and another. They began to hum along with Lyra, not yet in unison, but their notes, once lonely, now seemed to reach out, drawn by the gentle current of Lyra's song. The green light from the shard spread, dissolving the shimmering mist. As the mist receded, the mutterwing's individual hums began to intertwine, like threads of silk being woven into a beautiful tapestry. Their glows intensified, creating a soft, pulsing constellation of light in the clearing. The forest itself seemed to sigh in relief, the rustle of leaves becoming a gentle accompaniment to their growing chorus. Their collective hum rose, a beautiful, comforting melody that resonated deep within Lyra's chest. It was the second note, the note of harmony, found not in forced unity, but in the gentle weaving of individual voices, each valued and heard. The melody shard pulsed brightly, absorbing the vibrant energy of their renewed song. It felt heavier now, infused with a deeper magic. With their harmony restored, the mutterwings darted joyfully around Lyra, their wings creating tiny gusts of fragrant air. Their leader, a wise-looking mutterwing with particularly luminous fur, landed gently on her shoulder, pressing its soft head against her cheek in a silent gesture of gratitude. Lyra smiled, a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the shard. She had helped them find their song, and in doing so had deepened her own understanding of the world's interconnected melodies. The shard now pulled her upwards, towards the distant, jagged silhouettes of mountains that scraped against the horizon. The journey was long, taking her through sun-drenched meadows, where wildflowers bowed to the breeze, and across babbling brooks, whose waters sang their own clear tunes. As she ascended, the air grew thinner, cooler, carrying the crisp scent of rock and ice. The vegetation thinned, giving way to hardy shrubs and patches of resilient moss. Finally, she reached the base of the Crystal Peaks, a range of mountains unlike any she had ever seen. Their slopes were not made of ordinary rock, but of colossal, shimmering crystals that caught the sunlight in a dazzling display of color. They hummed with a low, resonant thrum, a sound that vibrated through the very ground. As Lyra climbed, she noticed something peculiar. While the larger crystals still hummed, many of the smaller, more intricate formations were silent, dull, and fractured. Their edges were chipped, their surfaces clouded, as if a vital light within them had dimmed. The vibrant energy she had expected from such a place felt muted, tinged with a subtle sorrow. At a high, windswept ridge she found a creature unlike any she had seen before. It was ancient and majestic, its body a mosaic of iridescent scales that mirrored the crystals around it. It had wise, luminous eyes that seemed to hold the weight of ages, and a long, serpentine form that coiled gracefully around a particularly large, fractured crystal spire. This was a stone singer, a venerable guardian of the mountains, whose purpose was to weave the earth's memories into the crystal formations, allowing the mountains to sing the stories of time. The stone singer's usual song, a resonant melody that vibrated through the peaks, was now a mournful, fragmented tune. It was trying to mend a fractured crystal with its voice, but its efforts seemed to be in vain. The crystal remained dull, its surface refusing to glow. "The songs are breaking," the stone singer rumbled, its voice like the shifting of tectonic plates, yet laced with profound sadness. "The world forgets its past. The threads of memory fray, and the crystals once vibrant with ancient echoes grow silent. I cannot mend them alone." Lyra felt the melody shard pulse with a new, deep rhythm in her hand. It was a beat of profound understanding, of empathy for lost stories. This was the third note, the note of memory, of the world's quiet history. She approached the stone singer, holding out the shard. "Perhaps I can help you listen," she said, her voice soft but clear, surprising even herself with its newfound confidence. "The world's silent heart beats with us. Maybe it remembers even when we forget." The stone singer regarded her with its ancient eyes, a flicker of hope stirring within their depths. It gestured with its head towards the fractured crystal. Lyra knelt beside it, placing her free hand on the cold, jagged surface. She closed her eyes, letting the melody shard guide her. She listened not for sound, but for echoes. She listened for the faint vibrations of a time long past, for the whispers of forgotten winds, for the distant laughter of ancient beings, for the quiet sorrow of stones worn smooth by millennia. The melody shard hummed, amplifying these subtle resonances, weaving them into her awareness. She saw flashes of images in her mind's eye, glaciers carving valleys, volcanoes erupting in fiery splendor, the slow, patient growth of forests, the dance of primordial creatures. As Lyra listened, she began to hum. Her hum was different this time, a deep, resonant tone that mirrored the earth's ancient pulse. It was a song of remembrance, a gentle reawakening of the crystal's latent memories. The melody shard glowed with a soft amethyst light, pouring its energy into the fractured crystal, not forcing it, but coaxing it to remember its own story. Slowly, miraculously, the crystal began to respond. A faint light flickered within its depths, growing steadily brighter. The jagged edges softened, the clouded surface cleared, and the crystal began to hum, not with the stone singer's mournful tune, but with a vibrant, clear echo of its own ancient song. The stone singer joined Lyra, its deep rumble now a steady harmonizing bass, supporting the crystal's reawakened melody. The amethyst light of the shard pulsed, absorbing the profound wisdom and resilience of the mountain's renewed memories. It felt warmer, heavier still, vibrating with a quiet power that spoke of ages. The stone singer bowed its head in gratitude, its eyes shining. "You have reminded the world of its own story," it rumbled. "The memory lives again." The melody shard now pulsed with the combined energies of quietude, harmony, and memory. Its light was a kaleidoscope of colors, the deep sapphire of silence, the gentle green of connection, the rich amethyst of time. It no longer merely guided Lyra, it felt like an extension of her own heart, a living embodiment of the world's nascent song. The shard now drew her towards the very heart of the world, a place known only in whispers as the Loom of Echoes. It was not a physical location easily found on any map, but a nexus where all the world's melodies, stories, and silences were woven together. She felt it calling to her, a deep, resonant pull that resonated in her bones. The path the shard revealed was unlike any before. It led her through shimmering veils of light, across chasms bridged by invisible pathways, and into chambers where stars seemed to be born and die in moments. The air here was alive with potential, thick with the scent of creation and the faint hum of untold possibilities. Finally, she arrived. The Loom of Echoes was not a grand, imposing structure, but a vast, ethereal space, shimmering with countless threads of light and sound. These threads, fine as spider silk, were the individual notes of the world, the laughter of children, the roar of oceans, the rustle of wings, the silent growth of trees, the soft beat of every living heart. They crisscrossed and intertwined, forming a magnificent, ever-changing tapestry. But Lyra saw the problem immediately. While the threads were beautiful, they were loose, tangled in places, frayed in others. There was no central weaver, no guiding hand to ensure their intricate patterns held. A deep, resonant hum, the world's true song, was struggling to emerge, fragmented by the disarray. It was like a magnificent orchestra, playing all its instruments, but without a conductor, the symphony was lost. The resonance had told her the world's silent heart beats with her, but its evoice was still unheard, even by itself. In the center of this cosmic loom stood a shimmering empty pedestal. It was here, Lyra realized, that the world's song was meant to coalesce, to be heard in its entirety. This was where the final note, the note of the expression itself, needed to be placed. As she approached the pedestal, the melody shard in her hand began to glow with an intense, pure white light. It trembled, then gently lifted from her palm, hovering above the pedestal. The light intensified and the shard began to expand, unfurling like a blossom. It was no longer just a shard, but a collection of all the notes she had gathered, held within a single radiant core. A voice, deeper and more expansive than resonance, filled the loom. It was the voice of the world itself, clear and resonant, yet tinged with a longing that echoed the quiet girl Lyra had once been. The song is whole, but it needs a voice to be sung, a quiet heart to hear its deepest truths, a gentle hand to weave its broken threads. Lyra understood. She wasn't just a listener anymore, she was the conductor. Her quiet strength, her ability to listen and connect, was exactly what the world needed to hear its own magnificent song. She reached out, placing both hands gently on the glowing, unfurling shard. She closed her eyes and began to sing. Her voice was not loud, not powerful in the way a storm was powerful, but it was clear, pure, and infused with the quietude of the first note, the harmony of the second, and the memory of the third. She sang of the silent strength in listening, of the beauty in connection, of the wisdom in every forgotten story. As her song flowed, the threads of light and sound in the loom of echoes began to respond. The tangled threads straightened, the frayed ones removed themselves, guided by the gentle current of Lyra's voice. The colors of the threads grew brighter, their individual hums swelling into a magnificent chorus. The pure white light of the shard intensified, expanding to encompass the entire loom, bathing it in a soft, radiant glow. The world's song, once fragmented, now rose as a single magnificent symphony. It was a song of life, of joy, of sorrow, of hope, of every feeling and every sound woven into a tapestry of breathtaking beauty. It was the sound of the world truly hearing itself, of its silent heart finally finding its voice. The melody shard, now a luminous orb of pure light, settled gently back into Lyra's hands, smaller than before, but infinitely more vibrant. Its task was done. The world had found its song, and Lyra had found her voice. As the echoes of the world's symphony resonated through the loom, Lyra felt a gentle warmth spread through her. The shimmering veils of light parted, guiding her back through the pathways she had taken, until she found herself standing once more at the edge of the ancient forest, beneath the familiar starlit sky. The world around her felt brighter, more alive. The stars seemed to twinkle with a renewed brilliance, the wind whispered with a clearer purpose, and the distant hoot of an owl carried a note of contentment. Lyra returned home, the melody shard resting softly in her pocket, a constant warmth against her skin. She was still Lyra, the quiet girl. But she was also Lyra, the girl who had helped the world find its song. She still preferred to listen, to observe, to feel the quiet pulse of life around her. But now, when she spoke, her words carried a new clarity, a gentle strength that came from knowing her own voice, and understanding its place in the grand, magnificent symphony of the world. She didn't need to be loud to be heard. She knew that her quietness was a gift, a pathway to deeper listening, to profound connection. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, the melody shard pulsed softly in her pocket, humming a lullaby of quiet strength, a reminder that every voice, no matter how soft, has a vital note to sing in the world's beautiful, unending song. The world was listening, and Lyra, the quiet girl, was now truly ready to be heard.